I thought we were unbreakable, mother and daughter, best friends, sharing every secret, every laugh, every dream. Then one ordinary afternoon, my phone rang. It was my son-in-law. Lily and I got married last weekend. Courthouse. Just us. My heart stopped. She never told me. Never invited me. No dress, no flowers, no mom in the front row. I was devastated, confused, desperate for answers. When I finally discovered the heartbreaking reason she hid her wedding from me, the family secret she uncovered that shattered everything, I cried for days. Our bond changed forever in ways I never saw coming. This is the story that broke my heart, and might break yours too. Watch till the end. It was one of those perfect fall afternoons in suburban Illinois, the kind you see on postcards but rarely feel in real life. The maple tree in my front yard had turned that impossible shade of crimson orange, leaves drifting lazily onto the lawn like slow-motion confetti. I was standing at the kitchen island in my bare feet, wooden spoon in hand, stirring a pot of butternut squash soup that had been simmering since noon. The house smelled like nutmeg and cinnamon and the faint trace of the pumpkin spice candle I'd lit earlier to make the place feel cozy. Just another Tuesday. Nothing special. Nothing that should have rewritten the rest of my life. My phone buzzed against the granite countertop. I glanced at the screen out of habit. Ethan, my son-in-law. Well, technically he wasn't my son-in-law yet, at least not in any way I knew about. Lily had been dating him for almost 2 years, but she'd kept the relationship unusually private. No big introductions over Sunday dinner, no holiday photos popping up on my feed. Just vague mentions of Ethan this and Ethan that, always delivered with that dreamy half-smile she used when she didn't want me asking too many questions. I wiped my hands on the dish towel slung over my shoulder and answered on the third ring. "Hey, Mom," he said. His voice was calm, almost rehearsed. Too calm. Ethan was usually the chatty one, full sentences, little jokes, asking about my garden or whether I'd seen the latest Bears game. Today, there was none of that. "Hey, yourself," I said, trying to match his easy tone. "What's up? Lily okay?" A short pause, just long enough for my stomach to do that tiny warning flip it does when something's about to go wrong.
"Yeah, she's good. Really good, actually." Another beat. "Lily and we got married last weekend." I laughed. Not a polite chuckle, a real startled bark of laughter that echoed off the cabinets. "Okay, very funny. You two practicing for April Fools early or what?" Silence on the other end. "Ethan?" "It wasn't a joke, Mom. We went to the courthouse in downtown Chicago, Saturday morning. Just us, 2 witnesses from his office, and the judge. We're married." The spoon slipped from my fingers and clattered into the pot. Hot soup splashed onto my wrist. I didn't even flinch. "You're serious?" "Yeah." My mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound came out at first. Then, stupidly, "But Lily always talked about a real wedding. The dress, the flowers, the string quartet she wanted since she was 12. She made me promise I'd wear that navy dress I bought her for her college graduation. We even looked at venues last Christmas." "I know," he said quietly. "She changed her mind." "Changed her mind?" I repeated, the words tasting like ash. "About the wedding of her dreams? About me being there?"
Another pause. Longer this time. "She didn't want a big thing," he said. "She said it would be too much pressure, too many people, too many expectations." I leaned against the counter for support. My knees felt liquid. "So she had a courthouse wedding. No dress, no flowers, no mother." My voice cracked on the last word. I hated how small it sounded. "She wore white," he offered, like that was supposed to make it better. "A simple dress she found online. She looked beautiful. Radiant, honestly. We both cried when the judge said husband and wife." I closed my eyes. Pictured it. My daughter in white, standing under fluorescent lights in some government building. exchanging vows with a man I barely knew, while I was here, stirring soup and thinking about calling her later to see if she wanted to come over for leftovers. "Why didn't she tell me?" I whispered. Ethan exhaled slowly. "She was afraid you'd try to talk her out of it, or make it bigger than she wanted. She needed it to be quiet, private, just us starting fresh." "Starting fresh," I echoed. The phrase landed like a slap. Fresh from what? From me? From the life I'd built for her after her father died? From the years I'd spent being both parents, working double shifts, scraping together money for dance lessons and college applications, and that trip to Paris she took junior year? I could hear him shifting on the other end, probably pacing the way he did when he was nervous. "We're happy, Mom," he said. "Really happy. I love her more than anything. And she loves you. This wasn't about not loving you."
Then what was it about? My voice rose despite myself, because from where I'm standing, it feels exactly like that. He didn't answer right away. When he did, his tone was careful, measured. "She'll call you when she's ready. She just needs a little space right now." Space. The word hung between us like smoke. I looked around my kitchen, the same kitchen where Lily used to sit on the counter swinging her legs while I made pancakes, where she'd cried on my shoulder the night her father's funeral ended, where she'd spread college acceptance letters across the table like winning lottery tickets. This house was full of her, full of us. And now she was married, and I hadn't even been invited to witness it. "I should go," Ethan said gently. "She's waiting for me. We're heading out for a quick honeymoon. Nothing fancy. Just to cabin up in Wisconsin for a few days. I'll have her call you soon, okay?" I didn't trust myself to speak. "Take care, Mom," he added. "And congratulations, you've got a son now." He said it lightly, like it was supposed to be a gift. The line went dead. I stood there holding the phone until the screen went black. The soup kept bubbling, steam curling up toward the ceiling fan. I reached over and turned off the burner with shaking fingers. Then I sank onto the bar stool and stared at the wall. My daughter was married. My only child. The girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. The teenager who'd once screamed that she hated me because I wouldn't let her go to a party. The young woman who'd hugged me so tight at the airport before her first solo trip that I could still feel the imprint of her arms sometimes. Married. Without telling me. Without wanting me there. I didn't cry right away. The shock was too deep, like frostbite. You don't feel the pain until the warmth starts coming back. Instead, I opened my Photos app and scrolled back to the last picture I had of us together. It was from July, Independence Day weekend. We were at Navy Pier, eating cotton candy, wind blowing her hair across her face. She was laughing, head thrown back, eyes sparkling. I'd captured the exact moment she looked over at me and said, "I love you, Mom, like really love you." I stared at that photo until my eyes burned. Then I set the phone down, walked to the sink, and splashed cold water on my face. The questions started small and quiet. Why? What had I done? What hadn't I done? And the worst one, the one that lodged itself in my chest like a splinter. Was I really that easy to leave behind? Outside, the maple leaves kept falling, soft and careless, covering the lawn I'd raked with Lily 100 times. The world didn't stop turning just because my heart had. But from that moment on, nothing felt ordinary again. Nothing at all.
The first night after Ethan's call, I left the soup untouched on the stove until it congealed into a thick orange skin. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I sat on the living room couch with every light on, phone clutched in both hands like it was a lifeline that might suddenly start breathing again. I texted her at 8:47 p.m. Ethan told me, "Congratulations, sweetheart. I'm so happy for you both. Can we talk? Please call when you can. Love you." No dots, no read receipt, nothing. I waited until midnight, then sent another. "Just let me know you're okay. That's all I need right now." Still nothing. By 2 a.m., I was pacing the hallway in my robe, replaying every moment of the last few months, like a detective combing a crime scene. When had the shift happened? When had my daughter, the one who used to text me good morning memes and send me outfit selfies before dates, started pulling away? I landed on our last in-person coffee date. It was mid-September, a Saturday morning at that little cafe on Main Street with the mismatched chairs and the chalkboard menu that never changed. Lily had shown up wearing oversized sunglasses, even though it was overcast. She ordered her usual oat milk latte and barely touched it. I'd asked about Ethan, how things were going, when I might finally meet him properly instead of just waving across a parking lot once. She'd given me that tight, practiced smile. "He's great, Mom. Busy with work. You know how it is."
I'd teased her about eloping someday. If you ever decide to skip the big wedding drama, just promise you'll at least send me a photo. I need proof my baby girl said I do without me ugly crying in the front row. She laughed, too short, too sharp. Then she changed the subject to my garden, asking if the hydrangeas were still blooming. I let it slide, because that's what mothers do. We let things slide when our kids aren't ready to talk. But now, staring at my dark phone screen, I realized she hadn't been dodging the wedding talk. She'd been dodging me. I called her at 7:15 the next morning, straight to voicemail. Her cheerful recording, "Hey, it's Lily. Leave a message and I'll get back to you when I'm not being a responsible adult," felt like a slap. I hung up without speaking. Tried again at noon. Same thing. By evening, I'd left 3 voicemails, each one shorter and more desperate than the last. "Lily, it's Mom. I just want to hear your voice. Please call me back." "Sweetheart, I'm not mad, I promise. I'm just confused. Talk to me. I love you. That's all. I love you." Nothing. The silence stretched into days, then a full week. I kept the house spotless, as if cleaning could somehow lure her back. I washed her old comforter from college, even though she hadn't slept here in years. I dusted the framed photos on the mantel, her kindergarten graduation, prom, the day she got her master's degree. In every picture, she was smiling straight at the camera, straight at me. How could that girl vanish so completely? I drove to her apartment on the following Saturday. The building was one of those sleek, modern complexes in Lincoln Park. Glass lobby, rooftop deck. Rent I still couldn't believe she could afford on her marketing salary. I buzzed the intercom. No answer. I waited 20 minutes, then buzzed again. Still nothing. The doorman, a young guy with a man bun and a polite smile, finally came over. "Can I help you?" "I'm looking for my daughter, Lily Harper, apartment 12C. He checked his screen. "She moved out 2 weeks ago, ma'am. No forwarding address on file." The words hit like cold water. Moved out 2 weeks ago. Before the wedding. Before Ethan's call. "She didn't tell me," I said, more to myself than to him. He looked sympathetic. "Happens sometimes. People want a fresh start." A fresh start. There was that phrase again. I stood in the lobby until he gently suggested I leave. On the drive home, I cried so hard I had to pull over twice. Not loud sobs, just quiet, steady tears that blurred the road. By the time I got back to the house, my eyes were swollen and my throat raw. I tried Sarah next, Lily's best friend since freshman year of college. Sarah answered on the second ring. "Mrs. Harper?" Her voice was cautious, like she'd been expecting the call. "Sarah, hi. Have you talked to Lily? Do you know what's going on?" A long pause. I could hear traffic in the background. She must have been walking somewhere. "She asked me not to say anything," Sarah said finally. Said it was complicated.
Complicated how? My voice cracked. "She got married without telling me, Sarah. She moved out. She's ghosting me. What am I missing?" Another pause, longer. "She was scared you'd be upset," Sarah said. "That's really all I can tell you. I'm sorry." Upset? I almost laughed. I'd have been thrilled. I'd have thrown the reception of the century if she'd let me. Why would she think I'd be upset? "I don't know the whole story," Sarah said quickly. She needed to do it her way, without anyone else's input. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Harper. I really am." She hung up before I could ask anything else. That night, I sat on the back porch with a glass of red wine I didn't drink. The air was chilly. the kind of October cold that sneaks under your sweater. I stared at the empty swing set in the yard, rested now, unused for years, and remembered pushing Lily on it until my arms ached. She'd scream, "Higher, higher," until the chains rattled like they might snap. Back then, she trusted me to catch her if she fell. Now, she didn't even trust me enough to tell me she was getting married. The silence wasn't just the lack of texts or calls. It was bigger than that. It was the absence of her laugh in the house, the missing notifications from her Instagram stories, the empty chair at the table where I still set a place for her sometimes out of habit. It was the realization that my daughter had built a wall between us, brick by careful brick, and I hadn't noticed until it was finished. I didn't know why yet. I didn't know what secret or hurt or fear had made her do it. But I knew one thing with bone-deep certainty.
This wasn't just about a wedding. This was about something much older, much deeper, and whatever it had been strong enough to make her erase me from the happiest day of her life. I finished the wine in one long swallow, went inside, and locked the door behind me. The house felt bigger than it ever had, and emptier. I didn't sleep again that night. I just waited for a text, a call, a sign. None came. The silence stretched on, day after day, like a shadow that grew longer with every hour she didn't reach out. And somewhere in that darkness, the questions turned from confusion to fear. What if she never came back? What if this was permanent? What if I had already lost her forever and didn't even know why?
The silence had teeth now. It wasn't just quiet, it gnawed. Every morning I woke up reaching for my phone first, hoping for the little green notification bubble that would make everything make sense again. Every night I fell asleep with the screen glowing on my pillow, waiting for 3 dots that never appeared. By the end of the second week, the waiting had turned into something sharper: action. I couldn't sit in this house anymore, surrounded by ghosts of her childhood, pretending normalcy. I had to do something, anything. I started with the easiest place, her digital footprint. Lily had always been careful online, not the type to overshare, but she posted enough that I could usually piece together her life from snippets: a coffee cup with latte art, a sunset over Lake Michigan, a blurry selfie with friends at a rooftop bar. I opened Instagram first. Her profile was still there, but the grid hadn't updated since September 12th. A photo of her holding a giant pretzel at the German festival downtown, captioned simply, "Salty and happy." No stories archived, no new reels, nothing. I scrolled back further than I should have, looking for clues I might have missed. There was one from August, her laughing in a park, Ethan's arms slung casually around her shoulders for the first time in a public post. She tagged him, @EthanR.Collins, and written, "Found my favorite person to get lost with." I stared at his profile next. Private. Of course it was. Only 23 posts visible to the world, mostly landscapes and food. No wedding photo, no announcement. Just silence. Same as hers. Facebook was next. Same story. LinkedIn showed she'd updated her job title to Senior Brand Strategist at her agency 3 months earlier, but nothing personal. Twitter, she still called it that, refused to say X, was dormant. Even her Pinterest boards, full of wedding inspo from years ago, hadn't been touched in forever. The last pin was a bouquet of white peonies with the note, "Maybe someday." My chest tightened. Someday had come and gone without me. Desperation pushed me to stranger places. I Googled Lily Harper Wedding Chicago, like some pathetic detective in a Lifetime movie. Nothing. No registry at Target or Crate and Barrel. No mention on the Knot or Wedding Wire. It was as if the ceremony had happened in a parallel universe where I didn't exist. That's when I called Sarah again. I'd promised myself I didn't want to seem desperate, but the second week without contact broke me. She picked up after 4 rings, sounding wary. "Mrs. Harper, Sarah, please, I'm not asking you to betray her confidence. I just need to know she's safe. That's it. Is she okay?" A sigh so heavy I could feel it through the phone. "She's fine, physically fine, happy even. I saw her last week for lunch. She's different, but good different. Different how?" Another pause. "She seems lighter, like a weight's lifted, but she's also guarded. When I asked about you, she changed the subject so fast I got whiplash. My throat closed. Did she say why she didn't invite me? Why she didn't even tell me? Sarah hesitated longer this time. She said it was complicated, that inviting you would have made it about something it wasn't supposed to be about. She wanted the day to be clean, no history, no expectations. Clean? I repeated. The word tasted bitter. From me? I didn't say that, Sarah rushed in. Those were her words, not mine. Look, Mrs. Harper, Lily loves you. She talks about you all the time, good things. But whatever this is, it's big enough that she felt she had to protect the moment from it, from whatever she thinks would have come with you being there. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles ached. I've never hurt her, not once. I've only ever tried to give her everything. I know, Sarah said softly. I believe you. But belief isn't always what people feel. Sometimes they feel something else, and no amount of facts changes it. We sat in silence for a moment. Then she added, she asked me not to tell you anything specific, said if you knew the reason, it would only make things worse. I'm sorry, I really am. She hung up gently, but it still felt like a door slamming. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time after that, staring at the spot where Lily used to do her homework. The questions multiplied like shadows at dusk. What history was she so afraid of? What expectation did she think I'd bring? What secret had turned me from mother into liability? I opened my laptop next. I wasn't proud of it, but I logged into the family iCloud account we'd shared since she was in high school. Backup photos, shared calendars, location history when she'd turned it on for safety. The location had been off for months. Photos stopped syncing after early September. But there was one folder labeled Private L that I'd never opened before, password protected. I tried her birthday. No. Mine? No. Our old house address? No. Then, on a whim, I tried Tomorrow Never Came, the phrase she'd whispered to me the night after her dad's funeral, when she couldn't stop crying. The folder unlocked. Inside, screenshots, old emails, a few scanned documents. My heart hammered as I opened the first one, an email chain from 2018 between me and a woman named Claire Donovan. The name meant nothing to me at first. Then I read, Claire thanking me for the check, me replying that it was the least I could do after Tom's accident, her mentioning the baby was due in March, me asking for updates on doctor visits. My hands went cold. I hadn't thought about Claire in years. She'd been Tom's mistake. The affair I'd discovered only after the funeral, when her lawyer contacted me about life insurance. I'd paid her medical bills quietly, not out of guilt exactly, but out of duty. The baby was innocent, Tom's child, Lily's half-sibling. I'd never told Lily because what good would it have done? The baby had been stillborn at 7 months. Claire disappeared after that. End of story. Or so I thought. But here were the screenshots. Someone had dug them up, forwarded them. And at the bottom of the last email, in Lily's handwriting on a sticky note photo, she knew, all this time, and never told me. My stomach dropped. She'd found out, somehow, and she'd carried it alone. That was the crack, the first real one in the wall she'd built. I closed the laptop slowly, as if sudden movement might shatter everything. The questions had answers now, partial ones anyway, but the biggest one still burned. If she knew about the affair, about the baby, about my silence, why did that mean I couldn't watch her get married? What part of her pain made me the enemy on her happiest day? I didn't have that answer yet, but I knew one thing for certain. The silence wasn't random. It was deliberate, protective, and it was aimed straight at me. I stood up, walked to the window, and stared at the empty street. Somewhere out there, my daughter was living a new life, one without me in it. And whatever truth she'd uncovered had convinced her that was the only way to keep it safe. I wasn't sure I could forgive that, but more than that, I wasn't sure she'd ever let me try. 3 months had passed since Ethan's phone call turned my world inside out, and the calendar had flipped into the new year without mercy. January in Illinois is brutal.
Gray skies, wind that cuts through your coat like a knife, streets salted and dirty from weeks of snowmelt and refreeze. I'd stopped counting the days Lily hadn't contacted me. Instead, I counted the small rituals I clung to: making coffee in her favorite mug, even though it sat untouched, watering the pothos plant she'd given me for Mother's Day years ago, checking my phone every time it vibrated, even though I knew it wouldn't be her. Then, on a Wednesday afternoon, when the temperature hovered just above zero, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, no delivery scheduled, no neighbors dropping by. I opened the door in my sweatpants and an old Northwestern hoodie, hair in a messy bun, and there it was, a plain brown padded envelope on the welcome mat. No stamp, no return address, just my name, Eleanor Harper, in handwriting I would have recognized anywhere. Lily's. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped it as I carried it inside. I sat at the kitchen table, the same spot where we used to eat breakfast together on school mornings, and stared at the envelope like it might explode. Part of me wanted to rip it open. Another part wanted to shove it in a drawer and pretend it never arrived. In the end, curiosity, or maybe just exhaustion, won.
Inside was a single 5x7 photograph, glossy, professional looking, though I knew it hadn't been taken by a wedding photographer. Lily stood on the wide stone steps of the Cook County Courthouse, wind tugging at the hem of a simple knee-length white dress, sleeveless, A-line, the kind you could buy off the rack at Wattstrom and still look elegant in. Her hair was down, loose waves catching the late afternoon light. Ethan was beside her in a charcoal suit, no tie, his arm around her waist. They were both smiling, real smiles, the kind that crinkle the eyes. Behind them, the Chicago skyline loomed gray and indifferent. On the back, in black ink, her familiar slanted handwriting. "I'm sorry, Mom. I had to." 4 words, that was all. I turned the photo over and over, searching for more. No date, no other message, just those words and the image of my daughter married to a man I barely knew, on a day I hadn't been part of. I cried them, quiet, ugly tears that left my face blotchy and my nose running. Not the dramatic sobs of the first weeks, but something deeper, more resigned. The photo stayed clutched in my hand until the edges bent. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept getting up to look at it again, propping it against the lamp on my nightstand like some kind of shrine. Around 3 a.m., staring at her smile, I noticed something I hadn't before. Her eyes. They were bright, yes, but there was a shadow behind them, a tightness at the corners. She looked happy, but she also looked haunted, like someone carrying a secret too heavy for the occasion.
The next morning, I called a number I hadn't dialed in years. My old friend from college, Mark Riley, who'd left advertising to become a private investigator after his divorce. He answered on the second ring. "Ellie Harper? Holy hell, it's been forever." "I need a favor," I said without preamble. Not official, just help finding an address. He didn't ask why. He just listened as I explained, sparing the emotional parts, sticking to facts. Lily had moved. I didn't have her new place. I needed to know she was safe. That was all. Mark was quiet for a moment. "You sure this is just about safety?" "No," I admitted, "but it's what I'm telling myself." He sighed. "Give me a week. I'll do it quietly. No contact, no alerts, just an address." I thanked him and hung up before I could change my mind. The days after that blurred. I went through the motions. Work from home as a freelance editor, grocery runs, walks around the block to keep from going stir-crazy. But the photos stayed on the kitchen table, a constant reminder. I studied it like a puzzle. The way her hand rested on Ethan's arm, possessive, protective. The faint tan line on her ring finger, fresh and obvious. The courthouse steps still dusted with salt from the morning's flurries. One evening, fueled by too much coffee and not enough sense, I Googled the exact date Ethan had mentioned, last weekend in October. I pulled up Chicago marriage records, public domain, shockingly easy to search. There it was, Lily Marie Harper to Ethan Robert Collins, October 26th, filed the same day. No ceremony details beyond civil, no witnesses listed publicly. Seeing it in black and white made it real in a way the phone call hadn't. My daughter was legally someone else's wife, and I hadn't been there to see her sign the paper.
Mark called 6 days later. "Got something," he said. "She's in Evanston now. Small 2-bedroom rental off Sheridan Road, near the lake. Lease in both names. Utilities transferred 3 weeks before the wedding. No red flags, no police reports, no hospital stays, nothing alarming." He gave me the address. I wrote it down with numb fingers. "You gonna go?" he asked. "I don't know." "Be careful, Ellie. Sometimes knowing where someone is doesn't fix what's broken." I thanked him again and ended the call. That night, I sat with the photo and the address in front of me. I could drive there in under an hour. I could knock on the door. I could demand answers. Or I could wait for her to reach out, for the "I'm sorry" to turn into something more. In the end, I did neither. I put the photo in a drawer, taped the address to the inside cover of my journal, and went to bed. But the crack had formed. The facade I'd been holding up, the one where I told myself this was temporary, that she'd come around, that mothers and daughters always find their way back, was thinning. And beneath it, something colder was waiting. Fear. Not just that I'd lost her, but that whatever had made her right, I had to, was bigger than an old affair, bigger than a stillborn half-sibling, bigger than my silence. Something that had convinced my daughter the only way to protect her new life was to leave her old one behind, completely. I closed my eyes and listened to the wind rattle the windows. Somewhere across the city, in a rented apartment by the lake, my daughter was sleeping next to her husband, and I still didn't know why this sight of me would have ruined that. But I was starting to believe I might never be allowed to ask, and that realization hurt more than the silence ever had.
The envelope Ethan left on my porch that cold November evening felt heavier than it should have. It was small, maybe 5 by 7 inches, plain white, no address, no stamp, sealed with a single strip of clear tape. He'd handed it to me without meeting my eyes, murmuring, "She wanted you to have these eventually, but she couldn't face you." Then he turned and walked back to his car, shoulders hunched against the wind, leaving me standing there like I'd been handed a live grenade with the pin half called. I didn't open it right away. I carried it inside, set it on the kitchen counter, next to the untouched mug of tea I'd made earlier, and stared at it while the house settled into its evening quiet. The clock on the wall ticked louder than usual. Outside, a neighbor's dog barked once, sharp and lonely. Eventually, I poured a glass of Cabernet, something full-bodied to steady my nerves, and slid a butter knife under the flap. Inside were 3 letters, yellowed at the edges, folded carefully. The paper was thick, the kind people used to buy in stationery sets from department stores. The handwriting on the envelopes was unmistakable. Tom's. My late husband's, Lily's father. The man who died in a single-car accident on I-90 14 years earlier, leaving us both shattered and me to raise our 12-year-old daughter alone. The first envelope was addressed to CD, no full name. The postmark was from Milwaukee, dated 6 months before the crash. I unfolded it slowly, heart thudding. "My dearest Claire," it began. I read the whole thing standing up, one hand braced on the counter. Tom wrote about missing her, about how the guilt was eating him alive, about how he couldn't leave me and Lily, but couldn't stop loving her either. He promised to send money soon. He signed it, "Forever yours, T." The second letter was shorter, dated 3 months later. He mentioned a doctor's appointment. "The baby is strong," he wrote. "I heard the heartbeat last week. I wish I could be there every day." My knees buckled. I sank onto the nearest bar stool. The third was the worst, postmarked 2 weeks before the accident. "Claire, I've made up my mind. I'm telling Eleanor everything when I get back from the conference. This has gone on too long. I want to be with you and our child. I love you. Wait for me." He never made it back. I sat there for what felt like hours, the letters spread out like evidence in a trial I hadn't known I was part of. Tom had been having an affair, a serious one, long enough for a pregnancy, long enough for plans to leave us. But I already knew that part, or at least I'd suspected. After the funeral, when the insurance company dragged their feet and a lawyer contacted me about a pending claim, I'd pieced it together. Claire Donovan, a graphic designer for Milwaukee, 32 at the time, pregnant with Tom's child. I'd met her once, briefly, at a coffee shop near O'Hare after the burial. She'd been pale, red-eyed, 6 months along. She didn't ask for money outright. She just said the medical bills were piling up and Tom had promised to help. I wrote her a check for $20,000. No strings, no questions. I told her it was for the baby. I told myself it was the right thing. Then I never spoke to her again. What I didn't know, what these letters proved, was that Lily had known. Somehow, at some point, she'd gotten her hands on them, and she'd kept them secret all these years. I turned the envelopes over. On the back of the third one, in faint pencil, was a date, 7/14/2024, 4 months ago, around the time Lily had started pulling away. She'd found them recently, maybe in the attic, in the box of Tom's things I'd never had the heart to throw out. Maybe she'd gone looking after something triggered her, a conversation, a photo, a random memory. And once she read them, the world she thought she knew cracked open.
I could picture her sitting on the floor of the guest room, letters in her lap, realizing her father hadn't just died, he'd been planning to abandon us, that the perfect family she'd grown up idolizing had been built on lies, that I'd known about the affair, or at least the aftermath, and never told her. But there was more in the envelope. Tucked between the letters was a single sheet of notebook paper, torn from one of Lily's old journals. Her handwriting, sharper now. Adult. Mom paid her off. $20,000. Check stub in the file. She knew about the baby, my half-brother or sister, and never said a word. She let me believe Dad was perfect. She let me grieve a hero instead of a cheater. And when the baby died, she didn't even tell me there'd been one. She erased them, both of them, to protect her own story. My breath caught. The stillbirth. Claire had texted me once, months later. He didn't make it. I'd sent flowers. That was it. I hadn't told Lily because what was the point? A sibling she'd never meet? A father who'd betrayed us both? I thought I was sparing her more pain. But to Lily it looked like erasure. Like I'd chosen my version of the past over the truth. Like I'd paid to keep her half-sibling out of our lives, permanently. I folded everything back into the envelope with trembling fingers. The wine sat untouched, warm now. I walked to the living room and sank onto the couch, pulling a throw blanket over my lap even though I wasn't cold. The house was too quiet. Always too quiet since she left. These letters weren't just proof of Tom's betrayal. They were proof of mine, at least in her eyes. Silence is a choice too. I'd chosen silence to protect her. She saw it as protection of myself, from scandal, from questions, from having to admit our family had never been what she thought. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark replaying every conversation we'd had about her father, how she'd say, "Dad would have loved this," or "I wish he could see me now." I'd always smiled and agreed, feeding the myth because it was easier than dismantling it. Now the myth was gone, and so was she. The next morning I called Ethan. He answered on the first ring. "Did you read them?" he asked quietly. "Yes." "She found them in July," he said. "She was helping you clean the attic after that leak. She opened the box. She didn't mean to pry. She said she just wanted to feel close to him. Then she couldn't stop reading." "Why didn't she come to me?" "She tried. She said she almost did, 12 times. But every time she pictured your face when she asked about it, she panicked. She was afraid you'd deny it, or worse, justify it. She needed time to process. Then she met me, and I came from a family with no secrets. Big Sunday dinners, loud arguments that end in hugs. She wanted that. Clean. No hidden letters, no payoffs, no ghosts. I swallowed hard. "And the wedding?" She said if you were there, the past would be there too. In the front row, in the toasts, in her head. She couldn't risk it. I closed my eyes. I didn't pay to hide anything, Ethan. I paid because the baby was Tom's responsibility, even after he was gone. "I believe you," he said, "but Lily, she sees it differently. She thinks you chose the lie over her right to know." The line went quiet. "I'm sorry,"
he added. "She still loves you, but right now, loving you hurts too much." He hung up. I sat with the envelope in my lap, the letters inside like unexploded ordnance. The first crack had been the photo. This was the break. And whatever came next, confrontation, forgiveness, more distance, I knew one thing with terrible clarity. My daughter hadn't just hidden her wedding from me, she'd hidden herself to keep the past from touching her future, and I was part of that past now, whether I wanted to be or not.
Winter had settled over Chicago like a heavy quilt, gray, damp, and unrelenting. Snow had fallen the night before, blanketing the suburbs in a deceptive hush that made everything look clean and peaceful. Inside my house, though, nothing felt peaceful. The letters from Tom sat on the coffee table like evidence in an open case file, and every time I walked past them, my stomach twisted. I'd read them so many times, the creases had worn soft. I still couldn't reconcile the man who wrote those passionate, guilt-ridden words with the husband who kissed me goodbye every morning and the father who taught Lily how to ride a bike in the driveway. I needed more than fragments. I needed the full picture from someone who'd been in the room when it all came apart. So I texted Ethan, short and direct. "Can we meet? Coffee. Neutral ground. I need to understand." He replied within minutes. "Tomorrow, 10 a.m., the Bean in Millennium Park. I'll be there." I arrived early, nerves buzzing. The park was quiet midweek, tourists sparse, the lake wind sharp enough to sting my cheeks. I ordered a black coffee and claimed a table near the window overlooking the Cloud Gate sculpture, its mirrored surface reflecting the skyline in distorted fragments. Ethan showed up right on time, hands in the pockets of his wool coat, scarf loose around his neck. He looked tired, dark circles under his eyes, the easy confidence I'd glimpsed before replaced by something more guarded. He sat across from me without taking off his coat. "Thanks for coming," I said. He nodded. "I figured we'd get here eventually." The barista called another order. Someone laughed too loud at a nearby table. Normal life happening all around us, while mine felt suspended. I didn't waste time. "Tell me what she told you. All of it. No sugarcoating." Ethan exhaled slowly, like he'd been holding the breath for weeks. He stared at the steam rising from his latte for a long moment before speaking. "After she found the letters in the attic, she spiraled. Quietly. She didn't yell or cry in front of you. She couldn't. She said she felt like everything she believed about her childhood was built on quicksand. Dad wasn't just gone. He was someone who'd planned to walk away. And you knew parts of it. You paid Claire. You kept the baby a secret. Even after the stillbirth, you didn't tell her there'd ever been a potential sibling." "I didn't tell her because the baby didn't survive," I said, voice low. "What would that have done except add more grief? She was 12 when Tom died. She was already grieving a father. I didn't want her grieving a ghost brother or sister she'd never meet." Ethan's eyes met mine, steady, not accusing, but not softening either. "She doesn't see it as protection. She sees it as control. You decided what truth she got to have. You decided the family narrative. And when she found out, it felt like betrayal on top of betrayal. First, Dad lied to you both. Then you lied by omission to her." I wrapped my hands tighter around the coffee cup. It had gone cold. "So she met you," I prompted. "Yeah." A small, almost sad smile crossed his face. "I come from a big, messy Irish family. 5 siblings, parents still married 35 years, Sunday dinners where everyone talks over each other and nobody leaves angry. No affairs, no hidden checks, no sealed boxes in the attic. When Lily started coming around more, she soaked it up. She'd sit at my mom's table and just watch, like she was studying what normal looked like. I felt a pang, sharp and unexpected. Jealousy? No. Sorrow, that my daughter had needed to look elsewhere for something I thought I'd given her. "And the wedding?" I asked. Ethan leaned forward slightly. We'd been talking about it for months, quietly. Then she got pregnant. 8 weeks. She was terrified. Not of the baby, of losing it. She'd read about miscarriage rates, about how common it is early on. And she kept thinking about that stillborn half-sibling, about how fragile family can be. She said she didn't want to wait, didn't want to plan a big thing and risk something going wrong before it happened. She wanted to be married first, officially, legally, before the world knew we were trying to build something new. He paused, swallowing. But even then, she couldn't shake the fear that if you were there, if the wedding was public, if you gave a toast or walked her down some aisle, she'd feel it. The past, the letters, the check, the secrets. She said inviting you would mean inviting all of it into the room, and she couldn't bear that on what was supposed to be the cleanest, purest day of her life. I stared at him. So she erased me. Not erased, he said gently. Protected, from her perspective anyway. She thought if she kept you out, the day could stay untouched. No questions, no looks, no accidental mentions of Dad that might lead to the truth spilling out. Just her and me, starting over.
The words landed like stones in still water. Ripples spread outward, touching every memory I had of planning her future. Prom tesses, college move-in days, the vague but vivid daydreams of her wedding. I'd always pictured myself there, front row, crying happy tears, hugging her afterward while everyone toasted. Instead, I'd been stirring soup 3 counties away. I looked out at the bean. My reflection stared back, older, smaller, alone. Did she ever consider telling me? I asked. Ethan hesitated. She almost did. The night before the courthouse appointment, she sat on our couch with her phone in her hand, thumb hovering over your number. She cried, said she wanted you there more than anything. But then she remembered the letters, remembered how she felt when she read them, like the ground dropped out. She couldn't risk that feeling on her wedding day, so she put the phone down, and we went. I nodded slowly. The pieces fit now, jagged but complete. I didn't pay Claire to stay quiet, I said. I paid because Tom owed her, because the baby was his. I didn't want her destitute while pregnant. I never asked her to disappear. She just did, after the loss. I know, Ethan said. I told Lily that. She heard me, but hearing and believing are different things right now. We sat in silence for a while. The coffee shop filled up around us. Laughter, clinking cups, the hiss of the espresso machine. Life moving forward. Finally, Ethan pushed back his chair. She's not ready to see you yet, but she's not closing the door forever. She just needs time to figure out what family means to her now, without the version she grew up believing. He stood. I'll keep you posted, if anything changes. I looked up at him. Thank you for telling me the truth. He gave a small nod. She's worth it. You both are. Then he walked out into the snow, leaving me alone with my cold coffee and the weight of everything I finally understood. The truth hadn't set me free. It had only made the distance between us feel more real, more deliberate, and more heartbreaking than ever. I started with the facts. I explained the affair, not to defend Tom, but to show I hadn't known it. I started with the facts. I explained the affair, not to defend Tom, but to show I hadn't known until after his death. I described meeting Claire once, how broken she looked, how the pregnancy was already far along. I told her about the stillbirth, how Claire's text had come months later, how I'd sent flowers and then let the connection fade because reopening it felt cruel to everyone involved. I wrote about the money, $20,000, not hush money, medical bills, rent, prenatal care, things Tom had promised and never delivered. I wrote that I did it for the baby, for the tiny chance that child might one day know a half-sister named Lily. I never asked Claire to stay silent. She just did. And I never told Lily, because grief was already a full-time job for both of us. Adding a dead sibling to the list seemed like piling stones on a cracked foundation. I apologized, not for protecting her, but for assuming I knew best what she could handle. I was wrong, I wrote. I should have trusted you with the truth, even if it hurt. I thought I was shielding you. Instead, I left you to discover it alone, and that betrayal is 9. I'm so sorry, Lily, for the silence, for the secrets, for letting you think your father was perfect when he was just human, and for making you feel like you had to protect your wedding day from me.
I ended with love, simple, raw, no conditions. I miss you every day. I'm proud of the woman you've become. I respect the life you're building with Ethan. If you ever want to talk, really talk, I'll be here. No defensiveness, no excuses. Just me, listening.
I sealed the envelope, addressed it to the Evanston apartment Ethan had quietly confirmed was still theirs, and drove to the post office at dawn to drop it in the slot before I could second-guess myself. Then I went home and waited. Nothing happened for 2 weeks. No call, no text, no returned letter marked undeliverable. Just more silence. Thicker now, because I'd finally said everything I needed to say and still heard nothing back. Then, one Tuesday night in late January, my phone rang at 11:14 p.m. The screen lit up with her name, Lily. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard I thought it might bruise. I answered on the second ring. Hello? It wasn't her voice on the line. Mom? Ethan sounded breathless, almost panicked. She's in the hospital, Northwestern Memorial. Miscarriage. She was 8 weeks. She asked me to call you. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the couch. Is she okay? My voice came out small. She's stable, physically, but she's wrecked. She kept saying your name, over and over. I want my mom. I didn't know what else to do. I was already moving, grabbing keys, coat, shoes without socks. I'm coming, I said. I'm on my way. The drive into the city felt endless. Snow flurries swirled in the headlights. I-90 was half empty, the radio playing soft jazz I didn't hear. All I could think was, she asked for me. After everything, she asked for me. I parked crooked in the garage, ran through the sliding doors, gave my name at the desk. They directed me to labor and delivery. Ironic, cruel. A nurse led me down a quiet hallway to a private room. Ethan was outside the door, leaning against the wall, eyes red. She's awake, he said. She knows you're here. I pushed the door open. Lily looked tiny in the hospital bed, pale, IV in her arm, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Monitors beeped softly. When she saw me, her face crumpled. Not anger, not distance, just raw, exhausted grief. I crossed the room in 3 steps and sat on the edge of the bed. She didn't pull away. Instead, she reached for my hand. Her fingers were cold. I read your letter, she whispered. I believe you. About the money, about not wanting to hurt me. But it still hurts so much, knowing there was someone out there, a brother or sister, and I never got to know them because decisions were made without me. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Mine followed. I know, I said. I know it hurts, and I'm sorry I wasn't brave enough to share it with you sooner. She squeezed my hand. I lost the baby, our baby, and all I could think was, I didn't want to do this alone. I didn't want to lose another piece of family without you here. I leaned forward and wrapped my arms around her. She let me. She cried into my shoulder like she was 12 again, like the years and the secrets and the courthouse steps hadn't happened. We stayed like that for a long time, rocking slightly, breathing together, the way we used to when thunderstorms scared her. But when she finally pulled back, her eyes were clear. Sad, but clear. I forgive you, she said quietly. I do. But forgiveness doesn't mean everything snaps back. I still need space. I still need to figure out who I am without carrying Dad's ghost and your silence. Ethan and I, we're going to try again, when we're ready. But right now, I can't pretend we're close the way we used to be. Not yet. I nodded, swallowed the ache. I understand. She looked at me for a long moment. Thank you for coming. I kissed her forehead. I'll always come when you call.
Ethan stepped in then. We talked in low voices. Doctors, follow-ups, rest. Practical things, safe things. When visiting hours ended, I hugged her again. She held on a second longer than I expected. Driving home through the empty city streets, snow falling harder now, I felt something shift inside me. Not healing, not yet, but a release. The dam had broken. Tears had been shed. Words had been said. Our closeness,
The easy, everyday kind we'd had for 30 years was gone, shattered like a dropped glass. Some pieces could be glued back. Others were dust. I didn't know what the new shape would look like. But for the first time since Ethan's phone call, I believed there might still be a shape at all. And that small hope, that fragile, flickering thing, was enough to get me through the night.
The hospital corridor smelled like antiseptic and stale coffee. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in a cold, clinical blue. I walked fast, almost running, past empty gurneys and closed doors, until I reached room 412. Ethan was waiting outside, arms crossed, looking smaller than I remembered. He didn't smile when he saw me. He just nodded once and stepped aside. "She's awake," he said quietly. "She knows you're coming." I pushed the door open slowly, like I was entering a room that might collapse if I moved too fast. Lily was propped up against pillows, the thin hospital blanket pulled to her chest. An IV dripped steadily into her arm. Her face was pale, almost translucent under the harsh light, dark circles bruising the skin beneath her eyes. When she turned her head and saw me standing there, something flickered across her expression. Relief, maybe, or just exhaustion so deep it looked like surrender. "Mom," she whispered. That one word cracked me open. I crossed the room in 3 steps and sat on the edge of the bed. She didn't flinch. Instead, she reached out and took my hand. Her fingers were ice cold, trembling slightly. I didn't speak at first. I just held her hand between both of mine, rubbing my thumbs over her knuckles the way I used to when she was little and had a fever. The monitors beeped softly in the background. Steady heart rate, steady oxygen, steady proof she was still here. "I read your letter," she said after a long silence. Her voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. "Twice. Ethan read it to me the first time because I couldn't stop crying long enough to focus on the words." I nodded, throat too tight to answer. "I believe you," she continued, "about the money, about why you did it. I can see now that you weren't trying to hide a scandal or protect your reputation. You were trying to take care of someone Dad left behind. You were trying to do the right thing when everything else felt wrong." A tear slipped down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. "But believing you doesn't erase the hurt," she said. "It doesn't bring back the years I spent thinking Dad was this perfect hero who died too soon. It doesn't give me back the sibling I never knew existed. It doesn't make me feel like I wasn't the last person to find out the truth about my own family." I swallowed hard. "I know." She looked at me then, really looked. Her eyes were red-rimmed, searching. "When I lost the baby tonight, I kept thinking about that stillbirth, about how fragile everything is, how one heartbeat can just stop. And I didn't want to face that alone. I didn't want to lose another piece of family without you here. That's why I let Ethan call you. That's the only reason." Her words landed like stones in still water, ripples of guilt, relief, sorrow, all at once. "I'm so sorry," I said. The apology felt small, inadequate. For the secrets, for assuming I knew best, for not giving you the chance to decide what you could handle. She squeezed my hand. "I forgive you. I do. But forgiveness isn't a reset button. It doesn't glue everything back the way it was." I nodded slowly. "I know." We sat in silence for a while. The room felt smaller, the air thicker. Outside the window, snow fell in lazy spirals against the city lights. Inside, time seemed to stretch. "I almost invited you to the wedding," she said quietly, "the night before. I sat on the couch with my phone, thumb on your contact. I pictured you walking through the courthouse doors in that navy dress you always wear to nice things. I pictured you hugging me afterward, telling me how proud you were. And then I pictured the questions, the looks, the moment someone asked about Dad and I'd have to decide whether to lie or tell the truth and ruin the day. I couldn't do it. I couldn't risk the past crashing in on the one clean thing I was trying to build." I felt fresh tears burn behind my eyes. "I would have kept it together, for you. I know you would have tried,"
she said, but I didn't want you to have to try. I wanted it to be easy, for once. Another long pause. The IV drip counted seconds like a metronome. I still love you, she whispered. That never stopped. But the way we were, that easy everyday closeness, it's gone. I can't pretend it isn't. Every time I think about calling you for coffee or sending you a silly meme, I remember the letters. I remember finding out alone in the attic while you were downstairs making dinner like nothing was wrong, and it hurts all over again. I let the tears fall then. No point in hiding them. I understand, I said, and I'll take whatever you're willing to give. Visits when you're ready, texts, phone calls on birthdays, whatever feels safe. She nodded. Ethan wants me to try. He thinks time will help. He thinks I'll wake up one day and the hurt won't be so sharp. Maybe he's right. But right now I need space. Not forever, just space. I leaned forward and pressed my lips to her forehead. She didn't pull away. She closed her eyes and let me stay there for a moment, breathing her in, the faint hospital smell mixed with the vanilla shampoo she'd used since high school.
When I finally sat back, she looked smaller, but also steadier. Go home, she said gently. Get some rest. I'll text you tomorrow. Promise. I stood up slowly. I love you, Lily, more than anything. I know, she said. I love you too. Ethan walked me to the elevator. We didn't speak until the doors opened. She'll come around, he said. Not fast, but she will. I gave him a tired smile. I hope so. The ride home was quiet. Snow had stopped falling. The streets were slick and empty. I kept replaying her words. Forgiveness, but no reset. Love, but distance. Space. When I got inside my house, the silence felt different. Not empty, but waiting. I didn't turn on every light like I usually did. I just sat in the dark living room, staring at the mantel where her photos still stood. The reunion had happened. We'd talked, we'd cried, we'd said the hardest things. But it wasn't a homecoming. It was a beginning of something smaller, more careful, more fragile. Our relationship had changed forever that night in the hospital room. Not broken beyond repair, but reshaped into something neither of us recognized yet. And for the first time since Ethan's call, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, that new shape could still hold love.
2 years have slipped by since that hospital reunion. 2 years of cautious steps, measured conversations, and the slow realization that some breaks don't heal back to the exact shape they once had. They scar over instead, leaving lines you can trace with your finger, but never quite erase. Time doesn't fix everything. Sometimes it just teaches you how to live with the new edges. Lily and Ethan's son, my grandson, turned 1 last month. His name is Thomas James Collins. They call him TJ. When I first heard the name, my breath caught. Thomas, after his grandfather, the man whose secrets had nearly severed us forever. I didn't ask why they chose it. I didn't need to. Lily told me anyway, in a quiet phone call the week before his christening. We wanted to honor the good parts, she said. The dad who taught me how to throw a baseball, the one who read me bedtime stories. Not the letters, not the lies, just the man we loved before everything cracked. I told her I understood, and I did. Mostly. TJ has Lily's dark curls and Ethan's serious brown eyes. He's already walking, fast, unsteady, the way toddlers do when they're determined to conquer the world one wobbly step at a time. I see him every few months now, never unannounced, never spontaneous, always planned. A Saturday afternoon at their house in Evanston, or sometimes at a neutral spot like the Lincoln Park Zoo or the Children's Museum downtown. Ethan is always there, buffer, translator, gentle enforcer of boundaries. Lily invites me to the big things, first birthday, holidays if they're low-key, the occasional family barbecue where Ethan's loud Irish clan fills the backyard with laughter and grill smoke. But never Christmas morning, never Thanksgiving dinner, never the quiet, intimate holidays where old traditions used to live. I don't push. I've learned that pushing only makes her pull back further.
Our conversations are polite, careful. We talk about TJ's latest milestone, first tooth, first word, mama, of course. How he loves stacking blocks until they topple, and he giggles like it's the funniest thing in the universe. We talk about her work. She got promoted again, leading a team now. We talk about Ethan's job, the cabin they rented up in Door County last summer. Safe topics, surface topics, the kind that don't brush against the fault lines. But sometimes, when TJ is napping or playing in another room, the air shifts. We sit on the couch with coffee cooling between us, and the unsaid things hover like humidity before a storm. Once, about a year ago, she looked at me across the kitchen island and said, "I still think about the letters sometimes. Not every day, but they come back, like a bruise you forget until you press on it." I nodded. I still think about them too, about what I should have done differently. She didn't reply right away, just stirred her coffee, watching the spoon make slow circles. "I don't hate you, Mom," she said finally. "I don't even resent you anymore, not really. But I can't go back to the way we were. That version of us, it was built on a story that wasn't true. And now that I know the real one, I can't unknow it." "I wouldn't ask you to," I told her. She reached across the counter and squeezed my hand, just for a second. Then she let go. That's how it is now. Small gestures, brief touches, moments of connection that flicker and fade like candle flames in a drafty room. I keep photos of TJ on my fridge, school pictures from the daycare, snapshots from zoo trips, one blurry selfie Lily took of the three of them at the beach last summer. I look at them every morning while I make coffee. Sometimes I trace his little face with my fingertip and whisper, "Hi, baby boy." It's the closest I get to the everyday grandmother role I once imagined, baking cookies together, sleepovers, surprise visits with ice cream. But I'm grateful for what I have. Grateful he knows my name. Grateful when he toddles over and holds up his arms for me to pick him up. Grateful Lily doesn't flinch when I hug her goodbye, even if the hug is brief and careful. I've changed too. I sold the big house in the suburb rooms, too many echoes. I moved into a smaller place in the city, a condo near the lake with big windows and a balcony where I can watch the water at sunset. I started painting again, watercolors. Nothing serious, just colors on paper to fill quiet evenings. I joined a book club. I travel a little. Last fall I went to Paris alone, the trip Lily took in college that I'd always envied. I stood on the Pont des Arts and thought about how life keeps moving, even when your heart feels stuck. I don't wait for her to call every day anymore. I don't check my phone obsessively. The silence doesn't hurt the way it used to. It's just there, like background noise you learn to live with. But every once in a while, something small happens that reminds me of what we lost and what we still have. Like last month, when TJ's first birthday party was winding down, the guests had left, Ethan was cleaning up outside, and Lily and I were in the kitchen washing dishes side by side. TJ was asleep in his crib. The house was quiet, except for the soft clink of plates and running water. She handed me a wet glass to dry. Our fingers brushed. "You know," she said without looking at me, "I still dream about the old house sometimes. The kitchen. You making pancakes on Saturday mornings. Me sitting on the counter swinging my legs." I smiled, throat tight. "I remember those mornings." She paused, suds dripping from her hands. "I miss them. Not the lies, not the secrets. Just us. The easy us." "Me too," I whispered. She turned off the faucet, dried her hands on a towel. Then slowly she stepped closer and wrapped her arms around me. Not a quick hug, a real one. Long, tight, the way she used to when she was little and the world felt too big. I held her back, breathing in the scent of her hair. Still vanilla, still home. When she pulled away, her eyes were shiny but steady. "We're not there yet," she said softly. "But maybe someday." I nodded. "Someday is enough." She smiled, a small, real one, and went to check on TJ. I stood in her kitchen alone for a moment, listening to the house settle. Outside, Ethan laughed at something on his phone.
TJ stirred in his sleep. I picked up my coat, slipped it on, and walked to the door. As I left, I glanced back at the framed photo on the entry table. Lily and Ethan on their wedding day, courthouse steps, smiling like the world was new. I didn't feel the old stab of pain, just a quiet ache. Acceptance, maybe. Our relationship changed forever the day she hid that wedding from me. It broke my heart in ways I never expected. But it didn't end us. It reshaped us into something careful, something distant, something polite. And sometimes, on rare, fragile days, something almost like love again. Not the old love, the new one, the one that knows the scars are there and loves anyway. I drive home through the city lights, windows down, cool air on my face. Somewhere in Evanston, my daughter is tucking her son into bed. And for tonight, that's enough. Tomorrow, I'll wake up and keep living, because that's what mothers do. Even when the closeness is gone, even when the door stays half closed, we keep loving through the crack and hope one day it opens wider.